Got it. Hey, YC, happy Friday, the first Friday. No, I guess last Friday was the first Friday of summer, but the last Friday of June. So that means Q2 is basically over. It's done in the books, all that good stuff. So how are you doing? Let's, checking in. Hey, Nina Bina.
Hey, Terry.
On what we're just talking. I'm sorry. I'm not like,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to multitask. All right, now you got my full attention. So into Q2, almost the end of Q2. How are you doing? Are you midway through the year? Have you done a check-in, met with your team? This is a good time to just sort of take a pause. It is summertime, and while we've talked ad nauseum about summer slowdown does not have to mean less revenue, it is oftentimes a good time. You have a little longer days. I don't know about you guys, but I found there still seems to be just sort of just general like, it's summertime, even though, I mean, it goes way back, particularly in the States, way back to school, right? It's summer vacation. I still think there's sort of that just in general, a sense of, oh, it's summertime, things are different, the days are longer, things feel a little slower. So it's a good time to take stock and reassess and where you're at. Are you on track with your goals? Are you off track? If you're off track, do you have strategies to get you back on track? Or maybe you need a different goal. So this is a good time just to maybe take that pause. I have a client that she and her manager are going to, when we've talked about this before, they're going to just go pull themselves out of the business for one day and just do a little mini, let's GSD day, get shit done day, right? So they're pulling themselves out. They're going to go someplace quiet with their laptops and good Wi-Fi, and they're just going to sit down and just sort of do this mid-year reassessment. So I think that's a great idea. It's not like they're going someplace far away. They just found a spot where they can meet. And, maybe you can't pull out for a day, but maybe you can pull out for 4 hours. Why not? Carol, what were some of the things that you did in your business?
Well, I did give myself permission to slow down in the
That's a
summer.
good one.
I mean, my kid was home from school and I wanted to go, spend half the day at the pool or whatever it was. Yeah. And so, as long as I knew these other things could get done, just the basics, I wasn't necessarily pushing as much.
Right.
So I kind of liked, my business partner and I both just gave ourselves permission to just kind of chill and not feel so pressured by doing all this extra stuff. Now, with that said, like we've spoken in the past roundups about, like, just do those little like housekeeping things that like kind of needed attention, but because of all the other busy going on the rest of the year, it hasn't gotten it done. So maybe it's, fixing that light or, getting the studio sort of prepped and ready for the incoming fall months,
And the other thing too is Christmas in July.
Yeah.
Start your plan for year end.
Yep.
Right. We did one of our former colleagues several years ago did a great webinar. And if you're on a paid membership, you can go back and watch it. It's in the YC resources on, prep now for the end of the year. Get all those year-end things, because once September rolls around, even if you don't have kids, it's just like it's that back to school, things start picking up again. And then certainly going into October. And then again, here in the States, we've got Thanksgiving. And then right on, of course, then the holidays and then the new year. And before you know it, it's June 28th, 2025. Right?
Yeah, I think there's so much, like, right now, there seem to be people who are reacting to the slowdown or whatever, when really we can't really do anything. You can do some things, but right now you should be planning, like you're saying, for the future, and like, how do you turn this around for the fall and the winter. The more planning you can do, the less time you'll spend spinning. So yeah, if you can set those plans in place now, it's so much easier long term.
and I mean, this is a shameless self plug, but I'm going to say it anyway. I was at this point in my business, oh my God, 7 years ago, 2017. It was just this time. I was reviewing it was a little bit, it was like right around the 4th of July. Because I remember I was sitting there with my P&L because I had all the way through Q2 and I'm looking at everything and I'm looking at my data and my body. And I was way off my goal. And I'm like, how, and then I'd gotten to know a business coach. It was before I met Josh. And so I had a consult with her. And I tell you, having that was like, it changed the trajectory of my business. So I went from being barely growing. I mean, it wasn't like I was lower than the previous year. I just was not where I wanted my numbers to be. And then the other thing for me is that what really prompted me to put the gas on the pedal, was I had signed up to do a teacher training as a participant in Bali in the fall. And I was going to be gone a whole month. And I'm like, man, and it was like the end of September to the end of October. And I'm like, it's right before that, everything. So I'm like, man, if I don't do something now, I'm probably not going to hit. So got my coach hired. We just worked like, mad dogs in the English and the noonday sun, got everything in place, and then got the staff trained, everything done. We were like in hyperdrive for a couple of months. And then when I went away, because again, I'm all the way on the other side of the world, I'm in this intense teacher training. And when I came back, we were up 42%.
Nice.
Wow.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
this coaching shit works. And it was because I needed that person to come in with that bird's eye view and, kind of help slog through some of this stuff. So that's a good, again, shameless self plug. But if you aren't hitting your goals, things are what's happening, always getting some help is a good thing. Yeah.
So good. It kind of reminds me of the idea of like having a day, a time of day rather, that you check your email rather than all day. Like that's kind of how I ran my business before I had a coach. Was I just like thought like if doing some was good, then doing everything all the time was better. So I was always working, but not very in a focused way, if that's tracking. And so having a coach come in and say, okay, let's work on this. Let's drill down on this. It's just so unbelievably useful.
Yeah.
And that you can be strategic with taking time, like how you spend your time. So you're not always checking your email, sort of like metaphorically, but literally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Turning off notifications, maybe even just shutting down the box for a while, not checking it. We talk a lot about about time blocking.
Time blocking. That's right.
Blocking,
that's
where
the term.
like, and as you said, maybe you check emails like twice a day, in the morning, in the afternoon. And here's never, ever, ever check your email in the evening
before bed.
Worst thing you could do, right? But set those times where it's like, I'm going to check my email, in the morning and then in the afternoon, and that's it. Otherwise, and this is where having things like a communication protocol like Slack can be handy, because then if your team needs to get a hold of you, they don't email you, they don't call you on your cell phone, they Slack you on it. So these are all little things just to try to organize your time better. And trust me, I'm still right. Here's my, we have Asana, and here's my list for today. I'm like, I just find myself jotting down these little pieces of paper. So anyway, but yeah, so getting stuff done, doing some planning for the fall. Like I love what you said, Carol, giving yourself permission to take some time off. And again, if you're in the beginning stages of owning your studio, it's like, man, I can't, well, what? Okay. You say you can't take a whole day off. Well, what if you took an afternoon off? Start there. Not go into your studio. Or pick one day a week where you don't go in. I did have a client several years ago. It was a newer studio and didn't have a lot of teachers, and she was really burnt out. And we just, after chatting about it, she made the decision that she closed on Sundays for the summer. And it ended up being okay.
Mhm.
It ended up being okay for her. It's like she needed that. It was, and I forget what we said, but basically it was like, new summer schedule, giving everybody chance to be with their families, blah, blah, blah. The studio will not, we will not have classes on Sunday. And
Yeah.
it was what she needed to kind of give herself a pause there.
Mhm. That's great.
Yeah. I thought,
Yeah.
there's nowhere is it written that we have to be open 360
No.
days a year.
Right. Did you two have days off that you strategically took regularly in the
Yes.
week? Yes. Yes. You're nodding. Wow.
I did. The only time I really take a whole weekend off is if I was away, because truthfully, I love being at my studio on Saturday mornings. I love,
Yeah.
it was so fun. It was very super
Yeah.
busy. And I like being there on Saturday morning. And plus I grew up in retail. So I was used
Mhm.
to working on Saturdays. I usually would try to take a day. Monday was my office day. That's the day I didn't teach. And so that was the day where I would do like all my bookkeeping stuff and, accounting stuff and stuff like that. And then I would usually try to take a day off in the week, because I actually like having a day off during the week.
Mhm.
Well, and mine was usually Wednesdays and Saturdays, because if it was a day that I needed to have a dentist appointment, I knew I could book it on
Yeah.
a Wednesday sometime, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a class going on, or something to
Yeah.
interfere with it. So
Mhm.
those were the 2 days that I really tried to
Mhm.
just not be there, go take a class,
Mhm.
but maybe not, like like truly be away
Yeah. Like don't
Yeah.
let go.
not checking emails or anything. So
It's
And
so good.
that's a tough one too, because I found too, it was hard. It was hard to just go in and take a class.
yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Mhm.
Right.
Impossible. Is that even
Mhm.
possible? No.
If you just
Like
get,
you said, Terry, when are you ever not a teacher?
yeah,
We talk about that in the sales training. It's
yeah.
like you're always the teacher. And so
Oh,
when are you ever not the studio owner?
you're always,
Never. You're always.
that's why I like to go. I was really fortunate in living in New England where I lived. There were at one point before I bought my studio, I was teaching at 5 different Bikram studios. Right. So there were a lot of studios in a fairly close geography that's when sometimes I would just hop in my car and I'd go take a class at another studio. Now, everybody still knew me,
Right.
and I didn't have the responsibility. It was like I didn't have to worry about all this stuff. And then also there was I lived in a downtown Lowell in an old, anyway, right around the corner from my building was a Vinyasa studio. And it was seriously, I walked down out the door, around the corner, and I had a class card there. And sometimes I would go, and they had some heated vinyasa classes, and there were a couple of teachers there that I liked. So sometimes I would just go take a class there because then nobody knew me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's really
Nobody
nice to
knew
be
my name. Yeah.
anonymous. That's
Anonymous.
a day off.
That
That's a
was,
day off.
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm the example of someone who did not take days off. And I don't recommend it. It's not because I'm a martyr and or anything like that. It's unhealthy and it
Yeah,
does cause burnout. And I'll also just transparently say I was on high blood pressure medication at 36.
that's not good.
And it really took a toll on my physical body, on my emotional health, on my private life, my relation. It was, and I loved my business. I loved my studio and I was like enmeshed with it. And so physically leaving when I moved to South Florida and I still owned my business was like the best thing for me personally and also for my business.
Yeah, yeah,
And because I put leadership in place. I didn't just leave suddenly. I put leadership in place. It was very strategic. I had about a year ahead to plan for that.
yeah.
And yeah. So I don't recommend working every day and even if you love it and being in your business every day. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Separation is good.
Yeah, yes. I took quite a bit I would take time off because I would go at least 2 times a year to California to see my mom.
Mhm.
So I would be gone at least a week. Sometimes it'd be like a long weekend or whatever, but I would go to California, and towards the end of her life, it was like the last year of her life, it was like 3 times I flew out. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, so that was
Yeah.
so I'd be gone for those times. Yeah, because I had the systems in place,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, in fact, when my mom passed, she passed in February 1st. I was gone for like the, typically the busiest time of
Mm.
particularly, well, any yoga studio, but particularly a hot studio in Massachusetts, busy time of the year.
Yeah.
And it was, at that point, I couldn't even think about responding to email or anything. But guess what? The business was fine while I was gone, while I checked out for that month. They were,
Yes. Yes. Testimony to the right people and the
the
right
right
processes.
people, and having the processes and having everything defined and all of that stuff. So,
Yeah.
So what are your process? What are you doing? What are you working on?
Take time off.
Take time off. Hey, here, post below. Are you taking time off this summer? Doesn't matter whether it's 4 hours, 4 days, 4 weeks, a month, are you taking time off? Where are you going? Are you going to do something fun? I just had a client get back from Hawaii because he was like, you know what? The only way I can separate from my studio is I got to get out of Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because particularly if you live close to your studio, like I did, there's always that, like if you live a little bit away, like, oh, it's a half-hour drive or whatever, but when you're like 2 miles from your studio and you can be there in like 2 minutes, sometimes
Right.
I think, and at the same time, I always knew if I ever owned a business, I wouldn't want to live really far away. I wouldn't want to have to drive 40 minutes to get there. So, so Nina, you asked a really good question in our coaches Slack channel. What you're working with a client who hasn't even opened her space yet. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's exciting. She's looking for spaces, and she's so we've been talking about how big is too big, how small is too small, and there's not a exact formula necessarily.
Although there is a formula.
Sorry, got my phone. Hi, I'm back. Oh, I'm dizzy. But what we recommend, oops, can you see me?
We can see a finger, I think. Now you're yeah, okay, now you're back. You're like a tilt-a-whirl.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're live. This is live, people. We do recommend approximately 36 square feet per mat, per person in a room. So now she's asking what's a reasonable price for a lease?
Well, there's a lot of variables that go into that because it depends on where you live, it's like a reasonable rent in Manhattan is going to be astronomical in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay, that's right.
So my first
thing.
My first thought when I saw that was, this is where you get a commercial property broker. This is where you get a professional who understands your market, and that's what they're for, right? Your professional brokers are there to help you figure out all the things. And
that's right.
I think a lot of it starts with, what's your budget? What can you afford? And if you have too big of a lease, then how much revenue do you have to have to support that lease? So oftentimes I have a client I've been working with since, I guess, December. And one of the things they struggle with is they have a very high rent out the gate. So if you have high rent out the gate, that's you got to figure out, okay, how much do I need to make in revenue, in order to pay all that stuff? Because your rent is
right.
Yeah. So your three largest, typically, Carol, you do this. What are your 3 largest expense categories on your P&L?
Rent, utilities, payroll, and owner pay. So, and you should always pay yourself out the gate too. So if you're going to have minimum 3 months of expenses out the gate, if you're brand new, I would say 6 would be even better. You want to factor that into the equation as well, and make sure that you're paying yourself profit first, pay yourself, etc.
Yes.
I think
Nina,
Nina,
you're kind of
is it
frozen.
just me? I don't know.
Oh,
Okay.
No, Nina, you're
Yeah,
kind of
okay.
frozen.
Uh-oh. Am I back?
Um,
Am I better? Is that better?
You
can-
might just try, Nina, taking, I mean, because you're on your phone, and
Yeah.
I would go off video, because sometimes it's the video when,
Okay.
yeah, so
I can figure that out.
Carry
Carry on.
if not, we'll just sort of watch this blur picture of you. But
Oh no. Oh no, how embarrassing.
so, yeah, I mean, it's, you know,
There
and
we
then one thing is location. I know we've talked about, everybody says location, location, location. And you need to be in the most expensive part of town,
go.
right?
it started, what triggered for me when you said getting a commercial real estate broker is they're talking. They might have a space that you've never even thought of yet that could be really great. And, you know, I think of course, you have to consider the size and how many people, because your room is what's going to make you money.
Yep.
So you have to think in terms of like, how many people can I comfortably fit in here? How many could I squeeze in if I had to? And, you know, how much can I charge for my classes? And those kind of will all culminate into working out whether this price per square foot will work for you or not.
Sustainable. Yeah, and we have this really cool calculator that we can plug in data and kind of spit out, you know, projections and things like that. But as Carol said, it's like classes is your revenue. Yes, you might have, you know, some YTTs, maybe some retreats or workshops, and classes is your revenue. So if
Classes should make you money.
it should make you money. So if you're, in my opinion, if you're open with the mindset, well, I'll do YTTs and retreats to make money, you're like shooting yourself in the foot right out the gate. Because yes, while those can be good revenue streams, if you're a yoga studio offering yoga classes, that should be your primary source of revenue. And if you just want to do YTTs and retreats, then don't even open a yoga studio. You know, build that business, right? So yeah, so that's important. Nina, are you still with us, or you just did?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, okay, good.
I'm here. I took your advice. I went on camera.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Okay, good. And what you said, Carol, is how many mats can you get in the room, and then what's that calculation, right?
How many mats can you get in a room? How many classes per day do you plan on offering? What are you going to charge for your classes, your membership? What is the blended average of that? Then you get your price per head, you know, or
Average revenue per
per visit. Yeah, there's a lot of factors to think through that will help determine, you know, whether it's too much. But
I think the other thing too is, like I said, how big is too big? I mean, I think we have a client that has a studio in San Francisco that can fit like 85 people. And I had one of my early on, my friend who the reason I ended up in Massachusetts, her first studio that she had could fit like 65. Particularly a lot of the Bikram studios are super big. You know, that's pretty big. And typically with that big, unless you're like in a warehouse space, you're going to be paying quite a bit of rent. So what is the size? We talked about this before. You can be small, and if you're too small, then your revenue will potentially be capped out. And a good rule of thumb is you look at, you know, looking towards 70% of your classes are full 70% of the time. Right. So that's
before you start adding classes.
Before you start adding classes, or before you start looking for maybe a bigger space or another space.
Yeah.
People like wanting to open a second studio. And like it's maybe a little bit too soon.
Too early.
My coach talked me off the ledge on that one.
Oh gosh.
And I'm so glad she did, because
oh my God.
This was in winter of 2019. And then of course, fast forward. We know what happened.
We know what came next. Yeah. I was also going to mention that this new client was saying, well, I thought maybe I would start small, and then, because I think that the place that she was interested in, which is a little small, only had like a 3-year or 2-year lease. And she said, and then I would move and expand. And I'm like, no. Again, it's not that it's a hard no, or it's a black or white thing, but don't we all know the pain of a build out? And
Yeah,
I wouldn't do that. I personally, I wouldn't plan for that. I would not plan for that in 2 years time. That to me sounds like a nightmare. I would
Yeah.
want to be in a place at least 5 years.
It's like
And
just as soon as you're getting comfortable and like
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
a rhythm, then
Yeah.
you're
Right.
turning
and
around
you're
and
moving, yeah,
yeah.
that's 2 years,
Right.
goes like, I mean,
It
5 years
flies by.
goes so fast.
Exactly.
So in that case, it's, yeah, 2 years is not enough time. And then, maybe if you're building out a basic studio, but like certainly a hot studio, my God, no, you don't want to
Right.
build a hot studio and then 2 years later have to build out another hot studio.
No.
That would be like, oof.
Yeah.
How would you get out from under
Right.
that debt
Right.
load?
And you know what I thought to myself privately? I'm so glad that you hired us.
Yeah.
Because from the, like imagine making these choices.
Yeah.
And then and then hiring the coach and
Yeah.
having to go back, which happens, and we can help you, but to have this team working with you right from the jump before you even have your space, I feel like we've already saved her so much hassle. And
Well, the other thing too is one thing I've seen, I have a client up in Canada, and when you think about your space, this is the other thing. A lot of times people want to have like these big, beautiful lobbies that people can have community and sit down, and they have tea stations, comfy couch. I mean, yes, that is good.
yeah.
And then their yoga rooms are smaller. And it's like, well, you want to make it, there's got to be a balance there. So this client that I have, she sold a studio and the new owner take over, and we've talked about it, and she's already planning, because the lobby is almost bigger than the room, which is to me just like, and I never really knew that with the previous owner because she was fine with the way things were. But now that it's a smaller studio, I think their max capacity is like 18. But yet they had, and so the new owner is already planning, talking to on our last call, she was, on our next call, I'm going to follow up with this, is that, but I said, could you bust a wall out? And she said, yeah, I think so. And take over like half the lobby and almost not quite double, but go from max 18 to maybe like 27 or 20, add. And with just by taking over some space in the lobby. So, I mean, while having a really big lobby with all these company amenities is nice, really, do you need it?
Yeah. Is that where you're making your revenue?
Is that where you're making your money? I mean, unless you have like a kick-ass retail section and you're selling a ton of retail, right?
But you also need people like, if you're only getting 18 people in every class, maybe the volume just of people seeing those items or purchasers aren't really strong, or unless you have like a storefront that people just walk by and it's like a boutique type of walk-in type of thing.
There's just, it's a fine line. It's kind of like figuring out your schedule. It's part art, part science. It's figuring out class times and how many classes you should have. And that's where, again, start small and build.
With a schedule.
With a schedule. It's like, would you guys agree? It is far easier to add classes.
Definitely.
Than it is to take classes away.
Yeah.
Jack, I think someone posted in the YC a while back about having, it was 22 classes or so. I'm like, that's 22 classes is
great.
It's a great schedule to start with.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like if you have really, it's like, if you build it, they will come kind of thing. And at some point with a schedule, you just have to decide this is it. And if you really have the value, if people are they will make the time to find it. But if you're constantly moving, I had a client who did this and then ended up unfortunately she closed after 2 years because she just kept moving the schedule against advice and
Mhm.
changing things around and this and that. And nobody could ever find a consistent practice.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Anyway,
Yeah. Mm.
so what is the magic? We'll throw this out. The magic number, if you're thinking, well, what is the magic number in terms of average revenue per client? We like to
Mhm.
say, between $12 to $14 for a yoga studio is considered good. We have clients that are way more than that, but to start, and some clients that are less than that. However, that's like a good range, $12 to $14 per visit per person.
Mhm.
And then you just do the math from there. If you have this many visits in a month, this is
Yeah.
what your revenue is going to be. And that's where it's like, okay, if I have 15 mats versus 25 mats, that's not just a little bit,
Mm.
that's exponential. Because keep in mind,
Yeah.
in the beginning, particularly, you may not have 100% full classes. So while, if you have a studio, like it's 20, 70% is 17. And are you going to start with, so that's where you've got to keep that in mind too. It's not just what's your max capacity, what's the realistic, then that's why we say 70% of the time.
Mhm.
I'm also
Mhm.
thinking about, when you first open, if you have a ginormous room and only 3 people show up, like there's a feeling
Yeah.
in like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just was sort of wanting to pick your brains, like how big is too big?
Yeah.
Would it be better to
Right.
have 2 smaller rooms where you
Yeah.
could run,
Mm.
multiple times eventually?
Mhm.
But, and from a teaching perspective, back in the day, our max capacity was 65 and we'd push it sometimes.
You
And
got
as a
65 people in that room?
yes,
Seriously? Oh my
65.
God.
That was the nose to toes.
Wow.
That was the nose to toes type
Wow.
of
That's
situation.
fat to mat and nose to toes.
But I
Yeah.
didn't, those classes as a teacher were
Yeah.
very, it was really difficult to teach,
Yeah.
I felt like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
finding that
Mm.
balance of like where it feels
Mhm.
exciting and like this is a
Mhm.
place where people want to be,
Yeah. I like to
you
call it
Right.
comfortably full. That's what I like
yes,
to call it.
yeah,
Comfortably full. And there's that tipping point where it goes from being comfortably
Yeah.
full to being crowded.
yes,
Right. Right.
And so
There
I
is a
told my
difference.
teachers, I never want to hear you use the word it's too crowded or crowded classes. Never say that. Because if you start saying them, then guess what happens?
Mhm.
So it's just like I said, oh, we're just comfortably full. Comfortably full. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I remember Josh saying this years ago when I first came on board. Pre-COVID, I think we were using the like 21 to 22 square feet. Does that seem right, Carol? Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's a big
something-
difference.
And now, well, 36 kind of came out of COVID because if you think about it, if you're standing in
Yeah.
the middle of a yoga mat, 36 is how you have basically a 6-foot radius around you. So there's
Right.
ideally 3 feet all the way around. So if you
Yeah.
use 36, you could know then that, all right, if you have 36, if it's 1,000 square feet, you could have 36 people. But in reality, I could fit 42.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mhm.
And talking about, we talked
Right.
about before, the flex spots, having those flex spots
Yeah.
that you can, for teachers or new clients that come in that haven't registered. And I'm finding this a lot more with my clients nowadays, that they're getting more and more people walking in
Mm.
without registering. They're seeing an uptick in that. Have you guys noticed that? I mean, is it
Hmm.
still
It
mostly
hasn't come
online?
up. Yeah,
Really,
mostly
I was
online.
like at the last couple of on-sites, I was amazed they had, well,
Yeah.
when we were out there in Indy,
Uh-huh.
they had a
Yeah.
number of people but of course they were in a very busy storefront. So I think that's part of it too. If people see, if you have high visibility, people might more apt to walk in the door.
Right. Right. Hmm. Yeah, it's certainly nice when we know that they're coming. We can plan for that. But
I remember back in the day, nobody signed up online. Nobody.
right, exactly. That's a relatively new feature as well. Yeah, and actually during the pandemic, that was a policy, we had, you had
Oh,
to
yeah.
pre-register,
You had to.
right? Because, and everything was capped at, wow, how far we've come.
I know. I was capped at 7, including the teacher, and I used to be able to get 36 in the room.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I was in Massachusetts, so
Mhm.
and then I sold my studio, so I was very happy.
Mhm.
So yeah, so Nina, circling back to your original question is with the rent, it's like there's so many variables in it. And again,
Yeah.
get the professional look to what Carol said. They know what's going on. Maybe they know something that's coming up,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Because they're plugged into it's commercial property realtors they're plugged into a network, so they know, hey, this business is going out.
Yeah.
Maybe they know of a place. I know as so much now as it was like post-pandemic, it was like a lot of fitness places has closed. So there's fitness places
Right.
that are already built out,
Isn't that nice?
more
Yeah.
than if you're going into a standard like office space and you're having to tear walls down and things like that.
Yeah, that's a huge
Yeah, in fact, one of my
benefit.
clients moved in the summer of 21. Yeah, 21. And she took over, it had been a bar studio.
Mm.
So it was
Mhm.
she was on a month to month with her landlord, and they wanted the space that actually the restaurant wanted her space. So she had to get out, and they only gave her 30 days notice. So she ended
Mm.
up being shut for a month, but she pulled it together real quick because she found the space, and there wasn't a ton of build out that had to be done. So she could pivot pretty quickly and get in there, and has been thriving ever since. So yeah,
Wow, that's
there's,
awesome.
you know,
Yeah, to come in and already have a fitness studio, that saves so much
build
time
out.
and headache. Build out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
What else going on calls, my friends? You working on any websites right now, Carol?
No, not right now. I'm kind of, my next B2 week is a vacation. So,
Oh, good. Speaking of vacations.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we're both
Yeah,
gone that week.
that's
Although I'm
right.
doing a staycation.
Oh, good for
I've
you.
been traveling so much this year that I've decided I just want to stay home and do some at-home projects, kind of what you were talking about around the studio. Same thing. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's this project I want to do at my house, and there's this project I want to do. So, and I already told my sister we're going to go out to lunch one day, and
Oh,
so yeah, so I'm just having a little staycation. And
That's
I'm really
great.
excited. I am logging out of everything.
Ooh,
Just give you a
logging
heads up.
out.
I am logging out of everything so that
Very.
computer's going to be shut down. I will log out of all the apps on my phone.
that
When is
scares me. I
this?
don't know why I'm scared.
I'm scared. I'm
Well,
Terry, I need you.
let's put it this way. You can WhatsApp me or text me. Text me or
Okay.
WhatsApp me.
Okay, within reason. No, with boundaries.
Yeah, the week of July 15th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's great. You deserve it. You work a lot.
So a reason I
And
ask about Carol and websites is
yeah,
that we have a product called Done For You Websites.
yeah.
If you're thinking of
So
maybe
awesome.
upgrading or
And how great is it to have someone in the YC, someone named Carol, who can build your website with the lens of your website is a selling tool.
Yeah.
I mean, other web developers don't necessarily have that. It was specific to what we're doing, which is like, right, the main purpose of the website is to sell your intro,
Yeah.
right? And what else?
Sell
Sign
your
up for class.
Yep.
Sell your intro, and sign up for class.
I nothing more to say. Nina's got it. She's selling it.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because I have a client that rebranded this year, and they knew about our service, but they were convinced because one of their teachers is a graphic artist by trade. for a local ad graphic, whatever design in town, and convince them on how important it would be for them to do the website. And they spent a boatload of money on it, and we are at fundamental differences, and they have when I saw it, I went, this is beautiful, but their call to action is book a class.
Oh, yeah.
And I have not been able, I mean, I don't know. They're like, well, our web develop, our people are saying that this is why, and they had all these compelling reasons. I'm saying, yeah, I'm sure they did. And I said, no disrespect. We just happen to have a different view of what a website is for. Your website should be about selling your direct to membership offer. And we've been going round and round, and I think I've lost, because when I checked yesterday, it was still book your class. So, but yeah, it's just interesting. I also think part of it is because they spent so much money on it, and I'm wondering, this is just me making up a story in absence.
Yeah.
My family have this phrase: in absence of information, this is the story I make up.
Like that.
The story I make up is that they might feel a little embarrassed that they spent over $10,000 on this website. And
Yeah.
while it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, it is a beautiful website. It's beautiful, but that's it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they're like, wow, maybe we should have gone with the YC website. I don't know. But again, that's the story I make up. But it's hard because every time I go on their website, I'm like, and you book a class, and then they use Mindbody, so that takes them to the schedule, and then the class, and then you're not registered, and then what's the first thing they offer? The drop-in.
Drop-in.
No. Yeah.
So anyway, that's my story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just to let you guys know, we will have a roundup next Friday, even though it is the 5th of July here in the United States. But we will be here. The team will be here. Yeah, if there's anything you'd like us to talk about, let us know. We're like, what do you want to talk about today? What do you want to talk about? As you probably have guessed, this show is totally unscripted. We just come on and be our badass selves. Anyway.
That's right.
Well, Nina, thank you for joining us.
So good to be with you. I'm trying to get back on camera, but it's hard I don't know how it works.
Are you at where are you at? Because are you at a studio in like the break?
I am. I'm at a studio. Oh, here we go. I got it.
There you are. Oh, good.
But I might freeze again.
Well, you're sideways. Okay. There you are. So sometimes places
you
don't have the best bandwidth. So, all right, my lovelies, have a great weekend, or as the Lady Grantham, Dowager Countess Grantham would say, weekend. What's a weekend? For those Downton Abbey fans out there.
Studio owners should definitely find out.
Yes.
And love it.
I love Downton Abbey. I can't, I think I've watched it like from beginning to end like 5 times, and I've watched all the movies. And they're coming out with a 3rd movie. I'm so excited. Anyway. Okay, y'all. We'll have a beautiful.
All right. Enjoy.
And
you too, everyone.
Have a good class, Carol.
Thank you.
Are you teaching or taking?
I'm teaching today. Yeah.
What are you
Me
teaching?
too.
IHP.
IHP, baby.
IHP.
Hey, I cannot wait to take your class one of these days.
What are you teaching?
I'm teaching a 60-minute 26-2 Bikram.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, I just took a class. It was so delicious.
I love that. Delicious classes. I worked out. I didn't take a class, but I worked out. I worked out this morning. And I have to say, clean to press. I'm now at 20 pounds. Clean to press. Clean to press.
Nice.
That's impressive.
I know.
Get it, Terry.
Wow.
I was doing kettlebell deadlifts. I was with a 70 pound.
Wow.
So
Terry.
I may not be doing yoga, but I'm still moving.
Nice.
Fantastic. Move
All
your
right,
body.
thank you so much.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody who's listening. And yes, and go do some yoga.